And for me, this is actually the core of the project. This is actually what the project's about. It's about looking at what fame is and our relationship with fame as an artist. Welcome to Jouska, the making and meaning behind the project by KTheChosen. 50 minutes of fame phrase just talks about how fame comes and goes, right? It's not a thing that you hold on to forever. And that's exactly what the hook in 15 minutes is talking about. You can have me for the night, um, but, just know that I bite. Like, I'm vicious. Like, I'm here for a bit. Like, when I'm here, I'm here. But when I'm gone because I don't belong to you. And I think Jeziah did a really good job on nailing that hook. Like, I wrote the hook, but she sang it. And I was like, this is perfect. It's exactly how I heard it in my head. And it was great because he ended up having the female voice is meant to be fame, because in this song, fame is personified as a woman. And it's almost like a relationship that I have with fame. It's really cool and exciting when we first meet. But then as the relationship goes on, I realize that, oh, okay, fame is kind of over me. Like, I'm no longer the hottest artist. I'm no longer the trending sound. And she's moving on to the next person. And I find it was a really good way to like talk about fame as a metaphor, and that like fame comes and goes. Like, it doesn't stick with anybody forever. And how we can get very bitter about that. So in the song, I'm like, well, what do you mean? You just don't want me because I'm not like, I'm not the hottest person anymore. I thought this was actual love, but I could get anything you want. Like, come on, like, just stick with me. She's like, nah, I'm good. And there's a lot of frustration that KTheChosen experiences in this, because he thought this was a long time thing. But it's funny because at the beginning of the verse, he says, I was a small time rapper. I just knew that putting some booty in the video would make me pop. So he did these things to become famous. And obviously that's what fame liked him for in the beginning, that he was compromising his image, compromising his values. But now that he's famous, like, these values have been compromised for so long that he's kind of lost who he is. And fame has kind of noticed that. And she's like, nah, you know what? I'm good. I'm moving on to the next person. Or at least that's his perspective of it, until we get fame's perspective in the second half of the song.
I'm the voice of the fans, yeah. I'm the choice of the past, ayy. No, you can't go back. No, you can't go back. I'm the voice of the man, yeah. I'm the voice of the man, ayy. No, you can't go back. No, you can't go back.
I just love that switch up. That you go from fame, from 50 minutes into like that sample, and then we go into fame. And fame, I think, I don't know, it's one of my favorite verses on the track, on the project, because I don't know, I feel like I rapped a verse that I'd never really rapped before. It's like, it's really long, but there's so many flows going in, there's so many double entendres. I really can't wait to break down the verses on that one for you. I'd again definitely recommend you check out the Genius page on those verses, because I said some stuff, man. Like, you just have to hear the depth behind what was being rapped there. And I think the most important thing, or the most exciting thing, was to kind of look at fame and talk from fame's perspective. Be like, look, I'm just a person. I'm just an entity that exists. It's you guys who are always chasing me. And I've seen some of you chase me successfully, and I've seen some of you lose your lives or lose yourselves in your pursuit of fame. And that's all the fame is saying. Like, yo, just relax. Like, once you pick me, you can't go back. Like, I am the voice of the man. I'm the voice of demand. Like, you just follow what you think the world needs, but you might lose yourself trying to please everyone. And it's actually a warning. It's not like fame is mad at him. Fame is warning him to, like, yo, be careful, okay? You don't want to get involved with me. And I like this because it actually goes back to a theme that's been running throughout the project that's been very subtle. And this subtle theme is the idea of missed opportunities or missed phone calls. And literally within the idea of missed phone calls, let's go back to the intro. Remember, KTheChosen gets a call from his girlfriend or a voicemail, and he deletes it. So that's a missed opportunity, a missed time to talk. At the end of Coast, he gets a call from the label, and they're like, your project is flopped. That's another missed call. Now, at the beginning of Fame, at the beginning of 15 minutes, he speaks to Fame. He's like, I think you're cute. He gives a hug. She writes her number down on a paper, and he's like, cool, pleasure to meet you. So he has her number. He's thinking of calling her. We never actually see that he calls her in the song. And then when we get to the end of Fame, she says, so think twice before you call me. So that's like 4 times that calling has been mentioned. And then in a later track, in 263 to 403, that's another reference to phone calls, because 263 is the area code for Harare. Oh, sorry, it's an area code for Zimbabwe, and 403 is the area code for Alberta, Canada, which is where I am now. So I've moved from Harare to Calgary, which is 263 to 403. So we'll get into that later, but that's kind of the hint I was making. And this whole idea of missed calls is the idea of how calls can be missed when we're trying to focus on other things. So a call can be metaphorical. It could be an opportunity. It could be a chance to make a new connection. And if you think about it, there's actually another call that's missed in for the homies. Remember, it's 3 a.m. I'm trying to call. Why won't you pick up? So that's a call that now you're trying to make that's not being picked up because of stuff you've done in the past. So phone calls are very important in this project because, again, this is a hypothetical conversation. So these phone calls are sometimes happening, sometimes not. And it's that idea of missed connections, which, again, is down to hypothetical conversations and things. So communication is actually a very important topic that goes throughout this project. So yeah, it's something to think about. Just like listen back and you hear all of those references. It's really cool. So yeah, with that being said, I think let's dive straight into Fame and what was being said in the lyrics.
Anger's a bitch, bark bark. Anger likes it when I put on a brave face. Anger tells me I could look so attractive, smile. Anger follows me home at night, smile. Anger loves a good joke, smile. Anger grabs at my crotch when I dance, smile. Anger spreads my legs for the camera, smile.
So over here we have the sample, and that is one of my favorite parts of Fame because the sample came to me so organically. I was at a feminist film festival and I was watching this short film called the PMS Hotline, and it just so happened that the maker of the filmmaker was there. So I just spoke to her afterwards, and she was super open to speak to me. Her name is Sharon Stevens, and I just asked her, do you mind giving me the audio to this? I would love to sample it. And she was like, yeah, by all means, go for it. So I hung on to the audio for a while. I didn't know I was going to use it. And then I ended up writing the song 15 minutes, and I wanted to connect it to Fame, but I didn't know how to connect the two. And then obviously I had the sample. I put the sample in there and it was just perfect. I think it vocalizes the rage in Fame's like perspective so well. And yeah, I just loved it. So that already set the tone for Fame, and I think it really works well. So if you've got time, go and check out the PMS Hotline. It's an amazing short film by a local Canadian filmmaker. Really cool. Yeah. So next line that I really think I'd like to draw attention to is the no habla español, but you want the peso, you speak it so bad to make it all bueno, and I was just like in deep thought about the idea of how we change who we are, or the perspective of who we are to become we do whatever is trending so that we can become the next big thing. And something I've noticed is that Latin music or Latin pop has become a very big genre in the last couple of years. And obviously there's some artists who genuinely were always into Latin pop, but there are others who kind of take advantage of that. They end up putting Spanish words or Spanish artists into their music so that they can game the charts. And you know what, like to each their own. I'm not going to fault anyone on that. But my point was to then become that rapper who does not speak Spanish. No hablo español. I do not understand Spanish, but I want the peso. I want that money, right? So I speak it bad to make it all good, to make it all bueno. And that was the whole idea of that line. But it's also interesting to note that the symbol for the peso, which is it was an S and a P, is actually how we got the modern logo or the modern symbol for the dollar sign, which is the S with the lines through it, right? So it's interesting to notice that it's also speaks to appropriation of other people's cultures. It speaks to how a lot of times the wealthy have made money off the hard work or the enslavement or taking advantage of immigrants. So you get the dollar from the Mexican dollar. If you kind of get what I'm hinting at here, you kind of you get lots of money from having immigrant workers that you pay less to, right? So you don't speak Spanish, but you want the money, so you still employ someone of Spanish descent so that you can get the money. Like it's its own little thing going on there, but I thought that was really cool to involve in this. There's a lot of cool lines, honestly, in this whole song. So again, please go through the Genius and have a look at the lyrics. But one that I want to take the final look at would be, the final stanza before we get into the call me line, because I think I already explained that. And it just looks at, if you think you can handle me, there's long hours, there's no sleep, there's stalker fans, there's press releases, there's anxiety, there's more Zans, and rest in peace. The whole verse is just about how we've lost several celebrities to the stress and anxiety that comes with making music or trying to be famous, trying to be a celebrity. So the long hours, no sleep, you're touring, you're having press conferences, um, you're just involved in so many legal battles because once you're famous, people just want every piece of you. Talk fast, press release. The minute that you speak without thinking or without your PR or publisher, you then have to have a press release to apologize for everything you've done. And it's not that you meant bad all the time; it's that you spoke too quickly. You didn't have time to process what you were saying, what you were doing, and all of this can lead to so much pressure and leads to anxiety. You can't see your family, you can't see your friends, and this anxiety can lead to drug addiction, it can lead to drug use. Like, not to say that this happens to everyone, but it's a very common story that we've heard throughout the ages. And especially at our time, um, in the last couple of years, we've lost a lot of talented artists to drug abuse or drug overdose. And I just wanted to acknowledge that. And that's why I said Lil Peep, but within Lil Peep, there's Mac Miller, there's XXX Tentacion. I know his wasn't drug related, but it's still something that comes with fame that, just everything going on put him in a lifestyle or within company that would come out and murder someone at such a young age. It's crazy. So for me, it was just a moment to acknowledge all the loss we've had and just say rest in peace to all these important and talented individuals. Um, and yeah, and I think the important thing is that fame is also trying to tell me that look, this isn't just rainbows. There's a lot of stress that comes with it, and for some people they can't handle it. So please just think twice before you actually want to get involved with me, because my life brings a lot of baggage, or pursuing me brings a lot. And yeah, that's essentially what that entire verse is speaking about, but I think it's really well summarized in those few lines.